from Connecticut Public Radio, this is Audacious. I'm Kyone Wolf. Have you ever seen a rattlesnake up close? It's got a triangular head with a forked tongue and curved, hollow fangs, and at the end of its body, which can be up to 8 feet long, there's that tail with the famous rattle. What is it about snakes? For centuries, they've slithered through our myths, our religions, and our nightmares. From the serpent in the Garden of Eden to Medusa's venomous locks, snakes have symbolized everything from evil to rebirth. Now, statistically, most of us will never come face to fang with a snake in the wild, and the odds of being bitten, let alone dying, are incredibly low. But that doesn't stop snakes from being one of the top 10 phobias worldwide and ingrained in our popular culture.
Enough is enough! I have had it with these mother snakes on this mother plane!
So if most of us happily keep our distance from snakes, then why are some people so drawn to them that they actually want them on their bodies? Well, a little later in the show, you'll hear from Tim Friede. He's taken the concept of tough skin to a whole new level. Tim has willingly been bitten by some of the most venomous snakes in the world in the hopes of contributing to the discovery of a universal antivenom. But first, Jackie Bibby, a.k.a. the Texas Snake Man. He's spent much of his life becoming a big star in the world of snake roundups. And for those of us unversed in that particular art, a snake roundup is part wildlife spectacle and part survivalist showdown. Wranglers like Jackie hunt down rattlesnakes, haul them in by the sackful, and show them off for prizes, education, and occasionally fried snacks. It's like a country fair meets a reptile circus with a dash of fear factor and a whole lot of... Now, when Jackie Bibby does something, Jackie Bibby does it big. He's used venomous rattlesnakes to set world records by putting them in his mouth, lounging with them in bathtubs, and snuggling up alongside him in sleeping bags. And, oh, hey, even though this goes without saying, I'm going to say it anyway. Please don't try anything you hear on this show at home, or anywhere else for that matter. Here's what it sounded like when Jackie and I connected.
Hello.
How are you?
Much better than I deserve. Thank you for asking.
All right. So here's where I want to start with you, Jackie. Your first memory of a rattlesnake.
I was probably 10, 11, 12. We had a cabin down at the lake, Brownwood Lake near here. And the first rattlesnake I ever saw was in those hills up there. I just watched it and saw it. But my involvement with rattlesnakes actually began at a rattlesnake roundup in 1969. They were sacking rattlesnakes in competition.
Wait a minute. When you say sacking, what does that mean?
They hand you 10 rattlesnakes inside of a burlap bag. You dump them out on the floor. You have 4 judges, corner of each corner of this plexiglass pit that people can see through. And you have 2 minutes to arrange your snakes. They shoot off a gun. When you raise your hand saying you're ready, then they'll shoot a gun that starts all timers. And you have to pin each snake, immobilize its head, pick it up, put it in the sack. And if you don't pin it properly, you get a penalty. And if you get bit, you get a penalty.
In more ways than one.
The team that does it the fastest wins. I was the only non-pro in the whole event. And I won 2 trophies, $30, and got my name in the paper.
That was all you needed to start this whole career. That's all you needed to get to me.
Wow. What a journey it has been.
Okay, so I'm going to jump ahead a little bit. You've set some records that we hope no one else tries to top. I just want to go through a few of them. You hold the world record for most number of venomous snakes held in one's mouth. 13. Why did you do that?
Good-looking girls like you will interview me. See how it worked?
It worked. Wait. So did you know going into this, I know I can fit 13 rattlesnakes in my mouth, or was it like, I guess we'll find out when we get there?
No.
Will you describe what you looked like with 13 rattlesnakes in your mouth? Because it's not like it wasn't like a hot dog. What did it look like?
Well, they're dangling down and I'm leaned over. So I have to lean over far enough that they're not going to strike me in a strategic position. Also, when you hold them in your mouth, I've got to bundle them together. Then when I put them in my mouth, I got to hold them with my teeth, my lips, my tongue, because you got to put a lot of surface on them. If you didn't, it would hurt them. And I don't hurt them. I never hurt animals. So I hold them with a lot of surface. So I got to get them rattlers back in there pretty good where I can get enough surface on them because when you get that many, it's a mouthful.
How long you keep them in there for?
I think 10 seconds is what the record calls for. Because once I get them in there, I got to turn loose.
Hey, how did it feel having these vibrating?
They can't vibrate when they're that tight.
Oh. Afterwards, did you brush your teeth or anything?
I don't remember. Probably washed it out with Dr. Pepper.
Good choice. You can get sponsored by Dr. Pepper. I'm sure they'd love that. Where did you get these rattlesnakes? Where do they come from?
I keep them year round. I have a museum in my hometown. My museum's not open. It's there for people if somebody wants to go. It's across the street from my house. So people will call me or somebody will go in the convenience store and say, Jackie Bibby lives in this town. Do you know where we could find him? And I said, sure. They call me up. I'll meet them at the meal or I'll meet them at my museum or I'll take pictures with them and show them rattlesnakes.
Now, you also hold a world record for lying in a bathtub with 195 live rattlesnakes, which had to have been the weirdest spa day of your life. Tell me how this worked logistically. Did you get in first? Were they in there? Walk me through it.
Yeah, it's a glass bathtub. The bathtub was made by the Guinness World Records people. Would set that bathtub up inside a pit where all the snakes were, and I had several people helping me so that they would pick them up. Once I got in and sat down, they would tape my legs because after a while you get fatigued. It takes 30 minutes to an hour to get them in and out. So they would tape my legs where they wouldn't shake. And then I would sit real still and get situated, and they'd start putting them in. And once they got to where we had to be for the record, then, okay, that's the record. Then they'd take them back out one at a time.
Will you describe the sensation of sharing a bathtub with 195 live rattlesnakes?
It's generally not too nerve-wracking, but every now and then something happens. For example, we were filming an episode of Ripley's Believe It or Not in California, and I was going for 84 at the time, and two of them got in a fight in my lap and were biting each other. So they didn't bite me, but they were biting each other. So that was pretty nerve-wracking because they were in my lap. So, and sometimes they'd crawl up. They generally would kind of stay down on my legs and in my lap, but sometimes they'd crawl up under my shoulders or crawl up around my face. That's a little bit scary.
Maybe now would be a really good time to understand rattlesnakes a bit better. So where I'm coming from, I think rattlesnake would kill me, right? And so I don't want to be anywhere near one, let alone 195 of them in a bathtub or any of the other situations you've gotten yourself into. Why weren't you fearing for your life? Will you give us the real info on rattlesnakes and why maybe they wouldn't necessarily kill you?
Having been involved with rattlesnakes for 53 years, I know about what to expect from a rattlesnake. Rattlesnakes will bite for two reasons: food and fear. I'm not a food source. He will never bite me to eat me. So the only reason he's ever going to bite me is because I scare him. So when I'm handling or doing stunts or in a sleeping bag, feet first, head first, or in a bathtub with a whole bunch of them where they're not covered, I stay still. Because as long as I'm still, they're not threatened by me.
Now, I wonder if they can sense your emotions. Like, can you be still and appear relaxed, but be freaking out on the inside?
No, they're not that smart.
Okay. So freak out all you want. Just chill out physically.
Just do it quietly.
Got it. Okay. So another record. Crawling headfirst inside a sleeping bag alongside 24 rattlesnakes. What?
Well, I get in the sleeping bag first. I get in, they zip it a little ways, and then they push them in one at a time. Now, rattlesnakes smell with their tongue. So they flick their tongue out to smell. So when they're in there around my head, I can feel them hitting my ears with their tongue. So you kind of got to stay pretty brave when that's happening.
So take me to the time when you shared a sleeping bag with 150 rattlesnakes. How did that go and how did that feel?
We did it for a TV show. I don't remember which one. I've been on TV over 200 times, so I don't remember the name of every show. But we were doing it for a TV show. We did it with a clear sleeping bag that we made. We made this sleeping bag, and it looked like a sandwich bag. So I get in a sandwich bag looking thing, and then they put all the snakes in with me, and then they kind of undo the sleeping bag and leave them all over me and get the sleeping bag off, and then take a picture with me laying in that pile of rattlesnakes.
How many times in your life have you been bitten by a rattlesnake?
12.
What was the worst?
When I lost my leg.
Tell me about it.
I was doing a show for a company. I do a lot of corporate shows, motivational shows and things. And I was doing one for a corporation in Dallas, Texas.
Wait a minute. I'm sorry to interrupt you. What exactly are you motivating with a bunch of snakes?
We're entertaining them, but also I'm a pretty motivational speaker type of guy. I'm pretty high energy. I've had a great deal of really good accolades down through my years. I've had a lot of awards and a lot of things that I've done and won and done and been through and experienced. So I can be that type of individual that when I go and do a show for a corporation where they bring their people in for like a yearly meeting, part of their entertainment is me in a room in that hotel, and they come in and I talk to them and do the. So I walked too close to a large rattlesnake, and he bit above my boot and bit me in the calf of my right leg. It began to bleed into my boot real bad because it's a hemotoxic venom. So it attacks the blood and it causes it not to coagulate. So you get real profuse bleeding. So it bled in my boot. They got me out of there. They called an ambulance. Ambulance had me to a hospital in less than an hour. But by then, there was so much venom in that large snake that it killed my leg. So they had to cut my leg off. Now, most people would have probably quit doing it. I bought a leg and kept on doing it.
Well, they're not going to bite that one off, are they?
They will not.
Now, what does a rattlesnake bite feel like typically? Like, for example, I have bees, and it's not the sting that really hurts. It's everything afterwards, the swelling and the itching and stuff. But
yeah, bee sting hurts worse than rattlesnake bite at first. Rattlesnake venom is not painful until it begins to rupture blood vessels. When it ruptures blood vessels, it causes massive swelling.
So wait a minute. Why did the bite on your leg cause such trauma, whereas the other bites you got didn't?
Everybody's unique. Each one has to be investigated on its own merit based on the amount of venom, where you're bitten, how big you are, when the snake last ate. All those factors all are factored into how bad the bite is.
And probably how long it takes for you to get treatment. What is treatment?
There's an antivenom known as Crofab, which will save your life, but it doesn't really do a lot else for you. I mean, you still got to go through some really bad pain. I mean, the pain, when it begins to swell, the pain is so bad, it feels like you're dying. And then if you get sick, and sometimes it'll make you sick and sometimes it won't. If it makes you sick, you do a lot of projectile vomiting. But if it don't make you sick, you feel terrible, but at least you're not sick at your stomach.
Did you ever fear for your life?
I've been told that I might die a few times, but I didn't believe them.
Do you think not believing them contributed to your survival?
Yeah, I think so. That and by God's amazing grace.
There, but by the grace of God, go we. I imagine that you're really drawn to rattlesnakes because they're local, right? But I wonder, are there any other venomous snakes in other parts of the world that you wish you could get cozy with?
Oh, I've done stuff with cobras and with copperheads and water moccasins. So I've done stuff with other snakes. None of them really have the mystique of a rattlesnake. Rattlesnakes, because of that rattle, they have that mystique.
What's the difference between a good rattlesnake handler and you, the best?
I'm not the best. I'm probably the best showman. I'm the attention seeker. I'm a glory hound. They know I never met a camera that I didn't love. They're often asked, what's the most dangerous thing you can do in a rattlesnake pit? They said, get between Jackie Bibby and a TV camera. So
You're listening to my conversation with Jackie Bibby, aka the Texas Snake Man. He set the Guinness World Record for holding the most rattlesnakes in his mouth. That's 13. When we get back, more of my conversation with Jackie, where he tells the tale of one of his most favorite snakes of all time.
We called him Diablo Blanco, which means white devil. Now he's made into a walking stick.
Plus, what's it like to get bitten intentionally by one of the most venomous snakes on the planet?
It's immediate pain. It's immediate. It's like a bee sting times 1,000.
I'm Kyone Wolf. This is Audacious. Stay with me.
Now you don't want to dance with the rattlesnake.
This is Audacious. I'm Kyone Wolf. Today we're talking with two men who've looked death in the eye, and in one case, stuck it in their mouth. In a little bit, you'll meet Tim Friede. Now, most of us would do anything not to get bitten by a snake, but in the hopes that his blood could be used to develop the world's first universal antivenom, he was regularly, intentionally bitten by some of the most venomous snakes on the planet. But before we get to Tim's story, let's get back to Jackie Bibby and his love of rattlesnakes. He set world records, including holding the most rattlesnakes in one's mouth, 13, lying in a bathtub with the most snakes, 195, and going headfirst into a sleeping bag with the most rattlesnakes, that's 24. These are, by the way, categories that Guinness no longer monitors, so technically no one can break these records. Not that you were going to try. I mean, seriously, don't do that. Anyway, back to our conversation. With all the rattlesnakes you've encountered over your whole life, if there's one rattlesnake that you feel the most emotion for.
I had a white rattlesnake that was 5.5 feet long, and I had him for about 5 years. Now he's made into a walking stick, so I use him as a walking cane. And so he's probably my most precious snake that I ever owned. And this snake was mean as hell. We called him Diablo Blanco, which means white devil. I had this snake at a show. We were filming for a crew out of Brazil. They had come into my hometown to film to take it back to Brazil. And it was music, tattoos, and rattlesnakes. Two of these girls that were tattooists, one of them was like 19 and the other was fairly young, but they were tattooing together. And they said, can we play with a non-venomous snake? I said, sure. There's a ball python over there in a box. I said, y'all can go play with that ball python. There was 2 boxes over there. One of them was a ball python. The other one was Diablo Blanco. Those 2 girls went over there, opened both boxes, put them around their neck. This girl walked around with a white rattlesnake around her neck for several minutes. I was inside the snake pit, and they hollered at me. And when I looked and saw this girl with that snake around her neck, I came close to dying right there on the spot. So I started talking to her. I said, take the snake off and lay it down. She took it off, laid it down in front of her, and stepped away. And we went and caught it. It never struck at her. Anybody else that would have picked that snake up, it struck at them. So God takes really good care of us that are idiots.
And he's not so mean anymore now that he's a walking stick, huh?
Yeah, he's pretty docile now.
So you're not overall scared of rattlesnakes. What are you scared of?
Redheads. Made you blush, didn't
Yeah. And I'm not even a redhead.
I?
Oh, do you ever eat snakes? I mean, not just hanging out of your mouth, but as a meal.
I have eaten it before. It's certainly not my favorite meal.
What do they taste like?
Rattlesnake tastes like what you cook it in. Because rattlesnake meat's very bland. It has almost no natural taste. It's a white meat, and there's not a lot of it. It's kind of like eating fish. You got to go peel it off the bone. Most people dip it in batter, then roll it in cornmeal flour, some type of coating, and deep fat fry it. That's how it's sold at the rattlesnake roundups.
What's the price point?
You usually get a 2 or 3 inch piece for about $5.
People have strong feelings about snakes. Have you ever experienced somebody who was freaking out about the snake, terrified of the snake, but by the time you were done with them, had changed their feelings?
Frequently. The best example, we did a television show for the Learning Channel, and it was a show called Fear. And they had a girl that was completely, totally terrified of rattlesnakes, but she was willing to address the fear. And so they contacted me and asked would I do this television show at one of my roundups in Freer. And I said, yes, of course I would. And so we took her and got her in a pit with rattlesnakes. And in 30 minutes time, we had her holding one. And when she got done, she said she'd never do it again. But she did it that day. She addressed that fear. It's a conditioned response. You're not naturally afraid of snakes. You've been taught.
But I mean, at the same time, they are venomous. So in a sense, in this context, it makes sense to be a little afraid of rattlesnakes, right?
Yes, of course. Yeah, most people have enough sense to be afraid of them. I respect them. So the things I do with them, I do carefully. And certainly with in mind that I don't want to be bitten. I mean, look at my hand.
You got some scars all the way up your forearm.
That's a fasciotomy scar. Yeah, and that divot, it's in my palm. That was from a rattlesnake bite.
Right on the meat of your palm.
Yeah, and that thumb, is deteriorated from tissue damage. So, I've got some scars from snake bites. I got a store-bought leg.
What do people get wrong about rattlesnakes?
How aggressive they are. And also how fast they'll kill you. I mean, if you get bit by a rattlesnake, anywhere but in the neck or the chest, you have hours before you're going to die. I mean, you got some time to get to the hospital. And that's the best thing you can do, is get to the hospital where you can be treated with antivenom.
Your New York Times obituary is going to be all about snakes and hopefully about, your loves and all your charitable work, all your motivational speaking, everything about you that maybe doesn't have to do with snakes. But I wonder when you consider your legacy and what people remember about you, what do you hope they remember?
That was nice. Nice, kind, and gentle. Now I can be because I'm hard-headed, I'm opinionated.
That's your phone.
That's the rattle. Can you hear it?
Yeah.
That's one of the guys I sponsor. I'm in recovery for drug addiction, 34 years.
Congratulations.
So I have a lot of people that I sponsor. So that's a huge passion of mine. So I certainly want to be remembered for doing that. And that I was fun. I mean, I'm fun.
I picked up on that. Well, Jackie Bibby, thank you so much for talking with me.
Well, I hope I've been different.
Now, it's really hard to imagine a man with 13 rattlesnakes dangling out of his mouth, but if you've got the guts, we've got the pictures. and a link to Jackie and his memoir, The Texas Snake Man, a very nice and kind gentleman. That's at our website right now, ctpublic.org/audacious. And after all these years working with rattlesnakes, Jackie started a YouTube channel with lots of educational content about snakes. Like this.
Rattlesnakes are not poisonous. Many people make that misconception, and they often state, well, I was bitten by a poisonous snake. No, you were bitten by a venomous snake. Poison is a chemical compound and must be ingested through your digestive system, like hemlock. That's poison. Venom is envenomated by the animal, and it has to be injected into the body to cause harm or to kill you.
Tim Friede understands that concept in a way that goes way beyond skin deep. It's in his bloodstream. For nearly 20 years, he willingly and often enthusiastically allowed himself to be bitten by some of the most venomous snakes on the planet, including black mambas, taipans, and cobras. Well, most of us would call that a terrible idea. Tim, a former truck mechanic, calls it groundbreaking science. Every year, millions of people worldwide are bitten by snakes. On average, 100,000 people die from these snake bites, according to the World Health Organization, and Tim was nearly one of them. So his single-minded quest has been to compel science to use his blood and antibodies to develop a universal antivenom in their labs. I asked Tim to tell me about the first time he was ever bitten.
5 years old, garter snake.
Oh, how did it feel?
Well, it hurt. It's not like a black mamba bite or a taipan bite, but it's still a snake bite. And when you're a kid, it scares you.
What was that moment in your life and in your world where you thought, you know what I could do? I could inject myself with snake venom in an effort to develop immunity. What was that moment?
That was pretty crazy because nobody's really done it until Bill Haast, 1948, his first injection, Cape Cobra. And I'm a very logical person, so I thought if I can make myself immune as a human, as a primate, they do it in equines, horses, why should I need antivenom? Why should I have to die? Why should I have to lose a finger? Why should I have to miss work? So I wanted to cut all that out of the picture and become the middleman and become the horse. It worked because I'm here, but it wasn't easy to do. It was pretty unbearable at times because there's no book on it.
So what was that first time like?
Getting bit?
Yeah, intentionally.
I died 2001, 2 cobra bites. My ex-wife told me to retire. What you're doing is not working. And it wasn't. And she said, you either fix it or we're divorced. And, I got divorced, but I ended up fixing it to take it to a new level. I wanted to get studied in a lab, which I have 6 times, and work with a lab, which I do now, Sinovax, to make a difference with it. My life was important, obviously, but the 5 million people that are bitten every year and the 125,000 people that die every single year weighed on me. And so, once I corrected it, figured it out, took better notes, dried out venom better, weighed out venom better, I just got better at it. And really what I do is venom immunotherapy, VIT. They do the same thing with insects. So I just replaced that with ophidians, with snakes. It was more or less curiosity. Can you do it? Yes or no? If it's no, you're going to die. If it's yes, you're going to survive. So I kind of took that path and just beat the out of it, man. One of the reasons I was bitten so much is to prove it worked to the naysayers. And that's what I did. The next goal was, could I be studied in a laboratory? No, they're not going to study you. Why not? People die from snakebite. And that's where my blood became very important to Sinovax because that's how we made the human antivenom, based on my blood, based on what I did for almost 20 years.
I'd really like to hear about one of your earlier attempts. It was shortly after 9/11, and
the next day, 9/12.
9/12, when everyone was being so nice to one another. Will you tell the story of what happened?
So the first bite, I was fine. But I waited an hour and took another bite by an Egyptian cobra and ended up in ICU, flatlined completely. And I got out of a coma for 4 days in a coma. And at that point, I realized that I had to change everything up. I just had to get better at it, better notes, put stuff in an Excel file, do really, really great pictures, great notes, and get really serious about it. And that's exactly what I did in 2001. And I was studied by Dr. Tu, Anthony Tu, the king of venom biochemistry. Him and Dr. Russell, for sure, basically froze my blood, sent it to Hong Kong, and the results came back negative. So that was my first study, another failure. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. At that point, I knew I was immune because I was getting bit and doing pretty much pure venom and lethal injections. And then I got studied again in 2003 by Dr. Kagan and Dr. Muthaya. And that was published in the Journals of Immunology. And my titer levels, IgG, the most important antibody that we have out of the 5, neutralize it off the charts. That's when I knew I was immune. So I just started to reach out to all these people all over the world, and didn't help them do it because I'm not a clinician, not a physician. I have no degree. I'm 100% self-taught.
Okay, will you please walk me through the process that you go through when you are intentionally getting bit?
I'm always scared. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I mean, I don't want to die because I know how it feels. And I felt pain because venom's inflammatory by nature. So it puts a lot of pressure on your nerves. It puts more pressure on your mind than anything else. I know the biology of it, but the psychology of it. It's okay, I have to do a black mamba bite. Big ones too, not little ones. And then I'm like, oh, taipan, the most venomous snake in the world. And when I did that, I kind of felt free. It just felt good to be there again and not go to the hospital and not use antivenom. And now we're making antivenom based off my blood because of that.
Talk me through where your hands are, where on your body you press their heads, like that moment right before the snake bites. Talk me through that moment.
So I'll grab it with my right hand, right-handed, and I'll do a forearm bite, anywhere in my forearms. I mean, bitten everywhere, but mainly forearms because it's easy to film, it's easy to do. And it's just, I don't know, for me, it's pretty surreal. A lot of people ask me, is it like drugs? Is it a high? It's like, no. The adrenaline rush is there because you realize what you're doing. So I just took notes, constant notes. I mean, note after note after note. 5 minutes after the bite, what does it feel like? 15 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, next day. With rattlesnakes, it's going to be a month before you heal up because venom's different. It's very complex, stupid complex.
Can you describe what it feels like the moment that the fangs go in?
It's immediate pain. It's immediate. It's like a bee sting times 1,000 because bees can have, scorpions too, 1 or 2 milligrams. Some of these snakes can have 100, 200, 300 milligrams of venom pumping into you. So more venom, the bigger problem it is. The more, even with immunity, my worst rattlesnake bites, mamba bites, taipan bites, I've swelled up from fingertips to my neck. The more toxic the venom is, like water cobras, for instance, second most venomous snake in Africa, minus the boomslang. Wicked venom, no antivenom made for it, pure neurotoxin. Did that for years and years and years because it's so powerful. Now, a big Western diamondback, that's a problem. Big Mojave, that's a problem. It's different venom. Out of the 3,000 species of snakes, about 600 are venomous. About 50 or 60 are pretty bad, and about 20 to 30 are really bad. I mean, you better get to the hospital in 20, 30 minutes, you're going to die. And so I kind of focused my entire project on those families. That's the venom I want into me to make the IgG antibodies to neutralize that particular venom because I knew I had neutralization. That's why I went to taipan, to black mamba, to water cobra, to monocle cobra, Egyptian cobra, to crates, rattlesnakes. I mean, you name it. Not everything, because I didn't need to do everything. And I couldn't find everything. I'm not going to order every venomous snake that there is because sometimes you just can't.
How much does a snake cost?
Well, the most expensive ones I bought are water cobras from Africa, $700 a piece, but not really that expensive. I don't breed anything. I never have.
Besides almost completely dying in 2001, what has been the most damage a snake bite has done to you?
Financially.
I mean, physically, but I'll take that too.
Physically, Naya Kayuthia 2003 did a Nat Geo. I did an injection of 144 milligrams. It's very necrotic venom. Didn't die, but blew most of my leg off, had to amputate some of it.
What did it feel like?
Whew, not fun. I was in bed for 2 months. The muscle just blew right out of the side of my leg.
Like literally blew out?
Oh, yeah. I have pictures of it in my book that I did. Yeah. And that sucked. I mean, I had to crawl to go to the bathroom, take it in the tub. I couldn't get any medication for it because it was self-induced. So my doctor that I was working with at the time couldn't give me anything. So I had actually OD'd on Advil. I didn't know I could get anaphylactic shock on Advil. So I OD'd on Advil because the pain was so bad.
But that didn't stop you.
Nope.
Why not?
Because I wanted to know how it feels.
What would have to happen to you to get you to stop?
Death. And that's another reason I retired from it, because I was so close to death constantly. It wasn't once in a while. I mean, it was the reason I got bit 200 times and over 700 injections in almost 20 years. It's because of saddle time. The more you do something, the better you get at it. And I like that experience. I like to push myself hard. Otherwise, I mean, what's the point? I don't do this to make money. You don't inject venom to make money. 50,000 people a year die. Well, 100,000 in Asia, 50,000 just in India. And then you jump over to Africa, that's 20,000. Jump to South America, Central, it's 5,000. North America, 7, 10. Australia, 7 to 10 because they have good medicine, good antivenom. So I was trying to hit the hardest hit areas, not just for those people, but I took the worst of the worst to see what it was going to do to me.
So if you could jump into the future when the problem that you've been trying to solve has been solved, your work is done here, I want you to explain what went right.
What went right is I'm still here and not dead. What went right is I found a company to work with that's making something I did, so not everything's in vain, no pun intended.
I think your pun was intended, but go ahead.
Sort of was, I was lying. So everything I did was for a good purpose for people that died from snake bite. And you have to understand, when somebody dies from snake bite, that could be a village leader, a fisherman, a hunter, a woman that makes clothes or cooks. The whole community's affected. So that one person that dies can affect 100. My mission now is education. Do you have cell phones? Do you live in a place where it's clean? Because if it's not, you're going to have rats. If you have rats, you have snakes. Can you get to the antivenom if need be? How far do you have to go? Do you need a boat? Do you need a car? Do you have gas in your car? Where's your cell phone? You got about 30 minutes to go. So if you have a 4-hour trip, I don't give a shit. If I have the best antivenom in the world, you have to get to it. And if you can't get to it, what are you going to do? So I'm trying to cut that out of the picture and incorporate a lot of doctors on how, let's say we have this antivenom. It's not done yet. I'm not saying it is. How are they going to get to it? Is it going to be lyophilized, which means is it going to be dry, which is good for 50, 60 years versus liquid, which is good for 3 to 5. They don't have cold storage over there. So now we're in the manufacturing process. You have all these clone cool antibodies. Now what are you going to do? How are you going to make that many vials? So we're working on that with a chill system and how you can just ramp up antibodies and make millions and millions of vials of them.
But then you got to get those vials to people. And then that's a whole other bag of snakes.
We had some good ideas with opening up manufacturing facilities around the world. Let's have a hub in Asia, a hub in India. Let's have a hub in Africa. And from there, you can pump it in there and then distribute it from there, so you're not buying it from San Francisco, California, and you have to take it to Tanzania or Sri Lanka or Australia.
Buy a snake. That was Tim Friede. He spent nearly 20 years intentionally getting bitten by venomous snakes in the hopes that his blood could be used to help create the world's first universal. After the break, Tim tells us who he thinks would be the perfect actor to play him in the movie of his life. But
if he did it, he's so intense that he'd have to do it. Grab the needle, figure it out.
Hey, fun fact, snakes can't hear, but they can feel. So if you have a friendly, non-venomous snake that you personally feel safe to touch, put it on a speaker and turn it up. I'm Kyone Wolf. This is Audacious. Stay tuned.
Snake Man ran straight into the fire. Opened the cages, saved every life. The pythons, the cobras, death adders, the boas, the tapins, the vipers, the rattlers, the corals. When those two fangs have burned in my skin like a brand, eyes in the tattoo of a snake man.
Snake bite, she gave me a snake bite. Snake bite, she gave me a snake bite.
This is Audacious. I'm Kyone Wolf. If the idea of getting bit by a venomous snake freaks you out, you are so totally normal. What a reasonable response to such a thing happening. But Tim Friede? He's not wired like the rest of us. He's been bitten by snakes willingly more than 200 times. For him, the fear and pain of snake bites take a backseat to one goal: being bitten by enough snakes to transform his blood, which has been saturated with venom from some of the most dangerous serpents on Earth, into the foundation for the world's first universal antivenom. I wrap up my conversation with Tim with a lightning round. So, does he have any tattoos?
Nope, just snake bite scars. 50 of them.
If you had to get a tattoo to secure $500 million in funding, what would that tattoo be?
Slayer.
Slayer.
Yeah.
Why Slayer?
I love Slayer. I'm a heavy metal dude.
That checks out. I can see that. I mean, that it would be weird if you're like, I actually really like Lady Gaga. I'd be a little surprised, but that would be my own bias.
I like her too, and I'm also a Swiftie.
And you're a Swiftie, sure.
Yep.
What's your favorite snake?
Black Mama.
Why?
Not the most venomous snake in the world, but as far as I'm concerned, the most dangerous. Long fangs, really bad venom, really big, and it's never happy. And that's why I chose that snake to get bit by. Easily.
Least favorite snake?
Copperhead, weak venom.
Ah, okay.
Boo.
Not impressive.
Boo.
You're not shaking in your boots.
Boo.
Who would play you in the movie?
Nicolas Cage. He could do it, but if he did it, he's so intense that he'd have to do it, which means he'd have to do what I did. Don't bullshit me, don't placate, grab the needle, figure it out. And I think he could do it.
If somebody got in touch with you and they said, oh my gosh, Tim, what you do is so cool and I totally get what you're going for and I really look up to you, I'm thinking I might try this myself at home. Please don't try this at home. What would you say to that person?
I can't help you. I'm not a doctor. If I try to help you and you up and I said something wrong in that messenger or email or phone call, then it's a liability on my ass. I did this on my own. There are other people that helped me do it many, many years ago. But nowadays, the liability is too big. I feel bad if they die. I feel bad I can't help them. But if I try to help them, it could bring the whole thing down. If you want to do it, great. I can't control that. But do it on your own, like I did it on my own. It ain't easy. That's why pretty much nobody does it. Because it's
How do you want to die?
in my sleep. I don't want it to be snake bite. I tried that. Doesn't work. As long as it's not slow and painful.
Like pretty much everybody else in our sleep.
Yeah, pretty much in my, like, see, all my best friends are dead just because we're older. I don't think about death. I don't, although I live in it, or I did a lot, it never crossed my mind. And another thing I get too is, you must be religious. I'm a stone cold atheist. I love Dawkins and Dennett and Harris and Hitchens. That's what I believe in. When I go, I go. We're all going to be worm food.
Yeah, regardless of what you believe, we definitely are going to be worm food, unless we get embalmed, in which case
That sounds weird. I don't want to be injected with that. I don't know. And I don't really think about it. I never really did. It was weird. I get the question. Because when you're getting bit by this stuff, you're afraid to die. And I never was, but it wasn't based on a deity. It wasn't based on religion. It was based on my knowledge and things I can and can't do properly. And for me, that's always been important. If I do die, it's my fault. It's nobody else's. I'm not here because God wants me to be here. If it happens, it happens, and not that I want to die, but when you get that weak nerve and you think about dying, you're going to shake so bad you can't put that needle in your arm. I've seen it. And, I don't do drugs. I'm stone cold sober as they come for the most part. So that was my drug, basically. It felt good. Just felt good knowing what I'm doing is for the right reasons and not the wrong reasons. And my kids really have followed suit with that, seeing how I lived it and what I went through. They don't do what I do. They do different, better things, I think, than I do. But it's good to be open with those people, whether they agree or they don't. At least we're being honest with each other. And that's the best thing I got from all of this is my honesty with it.
Yeah, accountability changes the game. I know that we can talk for 8 more hours. But did I leave any gaping holes in this conversation? Is there anything you want to leave the listeners with? Totally open floor. Anything you want to say?
We're about a year from manufacturing. We've made big strides, huge strides. Hopefully the next year we're going to, every day things change. The lab changes and science changes, and there's new venomous snakes out there that we didn't know about 20 years ago. Science is a day-by-day thing, and you just have to be very patient. Keep her cool. Don't get too excited. Stay focused. Stay productive. And those are things I live by tremendously, so I hope we can save some lives. I hope if I go to Tanzania, which hopefully will be soon, that a kid walks up to me and says, "Hey, thanks, Tim. Everything you did, I'm alive, or my mom's alive, or I can work in a village, or I can fish, or I can hunt, or I can sew, or I can make food. My family's better than it was before because everything you did was worth it." Whether I see that day or not, I hope I do, but if I don't, I've done a lot of with this.
If you died today, how would you feel about what you've accomplished?
I would be proud of myself because I know what it takes. And if I walk out of here and die by a bee sting, that's going to piss me off. So I hope I hit my head in some concrete pretty hard. But I don't think about that because my work speaks for itself.
Well, Tim Friede, thank you so much for talking with me.
You are most welcome. At an excellent time. I appreciate all the questions. Peace.
If you like this episode, check out the one we did featuring a conversation with one of the stars of the Netflix series Tiger King on what it was like when a tiger ripped off one of their arms. And you can also hear about the awesomeness and agony of not being able to feel any physical pain whatsoever, and hear from people who claim to be able to communicate psychically with animals. You can find them at ctpublic.org/audacious or wherever you get your podcasts. Stay in touch with me on the socials at Kyone Wolf. You can always send an email to audacious@ctpublic.org. Thanks for listening.
Sometimes you gotta kill your idol.